Hello and welcome to A Friend Like Me podcast. I am your host, Shariel, and I started this podcast because everybody needs a friend like me. Today's main topic is, are you always offended? But before we get into that topic, I have my first segment, which is called What I've Noticed. And having that summer just passed, what I've noticed when construction workers are, doing pavement or working on whatever, and they have that little sign that says stop on one side and slow on the other, they could let 5 or 6 cars pass with on the slow side of the sign. But as soon as your car is about to go, they flip the sign to stop. And I'm just like, that is crazy. You just let all these cars go. As soon as it's my turn, you flip the sign. All right. But let's get into the main topic, which is, are you always offended? This is something I have to talk about because being outraged, being hypersensitive, being offended is the way of life right now for society. I feel like a lot of people are always mad about something. And something they don't realize, these people that are always mad, is that you're never going to enjoy life. Because somebody or something said or done will always offend you. As human beings, we're offensive. And the thing is, most of the time it's not malicious and it's not our intention. When somebody believes something, when somebody says something or does something and states their opinion, that's what they truly think. And we have to stop villainizing people for what they think, because none of us are perfect. Nowadays, it feels like you have to walk on eggshells to state how you truly feel or to tiptoe around things so that you don't offend somebody. And a lot of the times in society, we're missing things that have true impact and have true substance because we can't say it say it straight, say it how it really is. We're always babying somebody's feelings because they're super sensitive. And the thing is, it's okay to be sensitive, but when you're sensitive to the point of you are trying to dictate what I say, you need to change you. Because guess what? The world doesn't revolve around you. So for you to think I need to filter what I say, number one, you're trying to take away my rights of freedom of speech. And number two, you need to check yourself, because I'm not saying something to make you mad. I don't go on camera or have a podcast, and even in real life with everyday people, your coworkers, your mom, your whoever. Human beings most of the time aren't saying stuff to offend somebody unless they want attention or they're trying to troll. And this is where I feel like we need to give people grace. We have to stop taking things so personal when somebody offends us and really start to think critically and logically. Because when you're emotional, you're just thinking about yourself. You made me mad. You said this. You did this. But why did they do that? Why did they say that? There's always a reason. And when you take yourself out of your emotional shoes and put on your hat of critical thinking, and you can be like, you know what? This person did this to me because their mother taught them to be that way. Or this person thinks this way because whatever city they're from, wherever state they're from, majority of these people have this belief. So that's why they believe this type of thing. You know what I mean? And also, when you are slow to offense, it allows you time to teach somebody. Because when you're offended, what do you want to do? You want to state your opinion and you want to argue, rather than let me take a breather and think about, why do they think like this? Let me hear their perspective, hear them out. Don't hear to respond, hear to understand. And once you understand where they're coming from, you can basically have a better perspective of why they think or did what they did. Even if you're not in person, like say it's a celebrity, there's certain celebrities that gets everybody mad all the time. And it almost makes me laugh, because it's like, you guys, every time this celebrity says something, you get mad every single time. When are we going to stop being offended at every single thing? Because sometimes being offended is a choice, whether you want to believe it or not. Just like being angry is a choice, you're choosing to be angry. There's other ways to react to what you're hearing or what's being done to you rather than being offended. And this is where I want to bring in the definition of offense, and I'm going to read it off this paper if you're watching on YouTube. The definition of offense is an annoyance or resentment brought about by a perceived insult to or disregard for oneself or one's standards or principles. And the key thing for me in this definition is an annoyance or resentment brought about by a perceived insult. So when somebody says something that offends us, we're seeing it in a lens of they're talking about me, and I'm insulted and I'm going to be angry. The thing is, for me, right, some things are triggering and you can't help it. That's just how our brain works. That's how our body works. But just because I'm triggered doesn't mean I'm going to let that manifest and build into me being offended, because that's going to raise my stress levels. That might change my perspective on the type of person that said it. And the perfect example of this is stereotypes, right? We can all be offended by stereotypes because there's stereotypes for everybody. There's stereotypes for men, there's stereotypes for women, there's stereotypes from whatever region you're from in the US or wherever you are from around the world. And there's also stereotypes especially for race, right? And they can be offensive. But I'm not going to allow stereotypes about Black people to offend me. If someone assumes I like chicken because I'm Black, that really doesn't offend me. And you know why? Because number one, it's true. And number two, everybody likes chicken. So why would I let that mess up my day or offend me and make me think, oh, this race thinks all Black people like chicken? On top of that, who cares if they think we like chicken? Because if they're stereotyping us or being prejudiced, that's their problem, not yours. We have to stop letting people's words and opinions and thoughts affect us so much, because that can mess up your day and ruin how you see somebody else. Just because that person of that race thinks that way, a person of their same race can think differently. So you're allowing this one bad seed to affect how you think about an entire race of people. That has to stop. And besides that example, right, there are times where you should be offended, because there are times where people do mistreat you, or they talk bad about you, or they say something that's offensive, or they downplay something that you're passionate about. You do have a right at times to be offended. I just want us to be more critical and think about how can we de-escalate our feelings when we feel triggered. Of course, there are times where people say stuff where they need to be corrected because they're dead wrong. But a lot of the things I'm seeing are people getting so angry about somebody's opinion. And half the time, the opinion doesn't even matter because it's their opinion, their life, their brain. Let people that want to be ignorant, or let people that want to think a certain way think their way, because we all have that right. You can't try to dictate how people think. You can't dictate how people speak. It's not right. You need to let people be them and have them let you be you, because that's fair and that's how things should be. When you just let things roll off your back, I'm not saying you should ignore things, because there's been things done to me even in the workplace where I'm one of two people of color, right? And everybody else is not Black, they're white, and they've called me the only other person of color's name, and they've done it multiple times, even when she left the job and I was still there, right? I have the right and had the right to be offended, and I left, but also how we react to things is important, right? I didn't flip on them when they kept calling me the other girl's name, who's not even Black, she's Hispanic, and we don't look alike. They kept calling me this girl's name. I could have flipped on them. They've done it multiple times. And I just told them politely after like the third or fourth time of 3 different people calling me the wrong name. I said, that's not my name. How would you feel if I called you something that's not your name? The girl said, oh, I don't care. It wouldn't bother me. And you know why it doesn't bother her? Because she's a white woman and they grow up, they experience things different from somebody like me who's a Black woman, or somebody who's a Hispanic woman. Being called the wrong name may not offend them, but to people like us, people of color, calling us the wrong name, it's dismissive and it's also belittling because of how society is set up, right? So that's a time where I really could have went off on somebody, and I had the right to, but I didn't. I chose to stay at the job a little longer, and then I left because I had the opportunity to leave. Thank God. I didn't really need the money that bad. But it was like, you're not going to keep disrespecting me. That's the thing. I was offended, But how I handled it with class, and I left when I had the chance. So there's times where we can take ourselves out of the environment of where we know we're going to be offended because we're around people that are offensive and don't care. And also with what we watch on social media outlets, right? We have to be careful about going to certain sites, certain pages where we know they post offensive people. We can't hate watch people either. A lot of people do that. If you know somebody says stuff you don't agree with, or they do things you don't agree with, stop looking at their page. Stop watching their interviews. Stop listening to their commentary, because you're just going to get yourself worked up. Learn how to separate yourself from that. I just want everybody to just realize you have more peace when you have control of over your emotions. Learn methods to be more in control of yourself and understanding the other person. Let's start being more understanding of each other. And I'm telling you, when you don't let things offend you, it's not you being unbothered or heartless or cold or, not in tune with your feelings. You are still in tune, but it's just important for us to build up that muscle of emotional discipline, having emotional intelligence of knowing when I should be offended, how long I should be offended, and when I need to just let things roll off my back. Because you need to keep your peace. Keep your peace, and your blood pressure will be lower, your stress levels, and you just won't let people affect you. It's sometimes I observe how people are so offended by people and they just get so outraged. I'm like, geez, you get mad about everything. Because it starts from being offended by something that is really a big deal to now you get offended when somebody gives you the wrong sauce at Chick-fil-A. It's like, people make mistakes. He might have not heard you. Give them grace. Stop being so offended. Take it easy. So I hope this was helpful, and we all need to practice this. That's all I have to say. So now let's get into my last segment, which is called A Song to Expand Your Attention Span. I like to suggest a song that's longer than 3 minutes because most songs nowadays are 3 minutes or less. And that song is Where's the Love by the Black Eyed Peas. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and enjoy the rest of your week.